Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have another special guest on that is going to talk about, that reality of managing a business while still working, and we'll talk about her business and the success that she's seeing there. So, welcome to the show, Kneisha Sanders.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, for full disclosure, Naisha and I met when our paths crossed when we both worked at General Electric. And before I met her, I was always told how impressive she is. And I think she's definitely lived up to it. So before we jump into talking about, your coaching business and what you're up to now, what's a little bit about your background kind of before the coaching world came into play?
Yeah, so a little bit of background. I grew up GE. For those ex-GEers or current GEers, they know what that culture is like. So that's kind of the essence of me, really execution driven and, drive oriented, results oriented. And so I think a little backstory outside of the career is I have this philosophy that faith has fueled my career. And so the way I started GE, I started on their financial management program. And it was faith that got me into the program. And throughout my entire GE career, which I was there for about 7.5 years, I was working in finance, but I got the chance to work in roles that I had absolutely zero business in being in. So one of the roles was me working with the HR team. And so I was really like their acting finance manager at the time. And one of the HR managers said, "Hey, I think you are better in HR. Like, have you ever considered coaching?" And I'm like, "I've never heard of what that is. Can you share a little bit about what that means?" And it prompted me to explore what it was. And after looking it up, I realized that I had been doing it my entire life. And so I got a little more curious and decided to get my master's degree, and then become a certified coach through the International Coaching Federation. And that was 7 years ago. And I've been doing it ever since. I got an amazing opportunity with NGE to do internal coaching. And so I did, 4 years or so in that. And then it prompted me to start my own company. And just really because I wanted the freedom and flexibility to, create programs and do different things. So I started my own company 5 years ago, Resolution Coaching, and under that realm, I've just been able to create programs and also integrate faith-based coaching, right? So that people can kind of understand how to involve God in their work and not come off as the weird person or, the person afraid to be or feeling like they're going to be offensive at work because they brought up God or said God made, help them through a specific situation. So it's that's kind of how I, intertwined my corporate and coaching career.
Gotcha. Now, what has that been like? I mean, like, what has that felt like managing both at the same time?
Yeah, so it it's one of those things where you have to stop compartmentalizing your life. One thing that I learned, and actually I ended up doing corporate audit staff, which is an internal executive leadership program to GE. And one thing they used to always say that I just could not, like, I just couldn't relate at the time, which was you have a choice to, have balance within your day. I think at the time it was work, 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 and nothing else. And it was really stressful, created a lot of anxiety, but they would always say you had the choice to, and I didn't agree to that because I felt like all of the deadlines and all of the meetings told me I didn't have a choice. But as I kind of matured in my professional career, I realized that I really do have a choice and I can decide to be work led or life led. And I really only have one life to live. And so instead of compartmentalizing all the pieces of me, I just need to consolidate it and know that, one calendar is going to help me be successful. And so now when I have things to do in my corporate job and things to do in my business, I plan it all out. And I'm no longer stressed around, getting everything done because I know what my priorities are and how to balance that all out, right? Because I've decided and chosen to live one life.
Gotcha. Now, why is it that you think people may, hesitate to, or I
Mhm.
guess may lean more to having a compartmentalized life? Because that's a very common thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that we've gotten into this culture of work-life balance, and that, and ironically enough, I think COVID is giving us a new perspective, right, of how really you only have one life, right? And you're on Zoom calls and you have the kids running around and screaming, 4-year olds screaming, right? Like you can't turn that off, right? You have to allow for that world to show up in your corporate job, right? And I think that, for most of our life to date, right? Anyone who's lived in the US or outside of the US, right, before COVID, right, pre COVID, was able to separate the two, right? Like you leave your true self at home and you go to work and you put on your corporate face, right? And, whether that be, and this is just the idea of being able to show your whole self at work, right? So you take yourself to work, but you leave, some parts of you at home because you don't feel like it's professional enough, or, you don't want people to know that side of you. Well, now, companies are in your homes. And so I think that people lean to compartmentalizing because they're afraid of what's going to be accepted and what's going to be accepted or not accepted, right? And so now we're kind of being forced to no longer do that, which is, one of the beauties I think coming out of COVID.
Gotcha. And I think that is a interesting one because that's something I have conversation with some friends about when I was working full time in a corporate is like it just seems like it made it more complicated when
Mm-hmm.
they were trying to section their life off to where they were like, well, after this time, I completely shut off, like I'm
Mm-hmm.
unreachable and like things just like it's almost like they were living two separate lives. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you maintain that? Because it to me,
Yes.
it just seems so much better to just figure out that, you know what, I'm gonna figure out how do I make all of the elements in my life have harmony versus how
Mm-hmm.
do I keep them separate and make sure they never mix.
Yes, exactly. It's funny because one of the concepts that I teach under my company is intertwined leadership, is what I call it. And basically, there's three components. And the first component is your belief system. So your faith, what you have faith in, or what do you believe? And, some people are afraid of that word because it sounds super spiritual. And the reality is that whatever you constantly listen to is what you believe in and have faith in, right? And so you have to always constantly think about what is it that you're believing that's creating the results that you have. And so like that's step one, right, is understanding your belief system. But then the other parts of that is your experience and your principles. And so, as a leader, whether you're in corporate America or, in your own business as working as an entrepreneur, it is, you have to remember that it's not just your work experience, or it's not just, your principles, but it really is all of you that shows up, And so I think that we start kind of getting to a place where we intertwine all of those items, then we can truly lead impactfully and really just, show up in our business or in our companies, and transform, the work that we're doing. So
No, I think that is I think that's very true because I think as you start to think about, the even as an entrepreneur, like the clients that you actually develop a relationship with, it's
mhm,
people that you actually liked as a person,
mhm.
for you to develop a relationship with, and it's hard to do that when people are just compartmentalizing their lives in an extreme way. It's difficult for you to get to know them. So I
Yeah.
completely agree with that. Now, you
Mhm.
mentioned about, your services. So what types of services do you offer?
Yeah, so I work with companies and also individuals, and it's all around coaching, specifically in the areas of diversity and inclusion, with the lens of race and also spirituality at work. And so it's trying to understand, how do you help and coach leaders to no longer feel isolated and marginalized and are able to be effective in their jobs. And so think of it as leadership performance is what I focus on. So whether that be through just trying to understand what type of teaching you coaching skills and how to have coaching conversations and how to motivate and encourage your teams, all the way to whether or not it's resolution I'm losing my train of thought, but conflict resolution where you are at odds with your team and you're trying to understand, how do you guys get to a shared goal or a shared vision. So yeah, and most recently, I just published my first book, and it's called The Fruit of the Spirit-Led Leader, which is all about how to integrate your spirituality into your work. And so, how do you involve God without offending others or feeling like you have to leave that part of you at home because it's not acceptable in the workplace. So it's just all around how to develop your leader and make you more effective in what you do.
Gotcha. Do you feel like people tend to lean back from their personal faith being
Mhm.
intertwined because of legal issues, or like what do you feel like or what have you seen become
Yeah.
the reason why people choose to lean back when it comes to that part of their life?
Yeah. So, what I've noticed is that it's this idea that if you bring God into the situation or talk about your faith, that you're going to come off as fluff. That people's not going to take you seriously because you're, in some la la land talking about how God, God's grace did it, right? Or that your faith fueled whatever you've done or whatever you've accomplished, when I think that what happens is that when people recognize that, right, that you're not sharing a part of your story and your journey, and so you come across, that's what makes you come across as, like, it's something that you're missing out on or something that I don't know. You're, like, what is it about you, like someone's still trying to put their finger on it. And so one of the things that I think leaders, professionals, whoever who has a spiritual um, knowing that their faith has fueled their career, that it's your truth and you can't offend someone because you spoke your truth, right? And I think that the other piece is that it's not fluff when it's real, right? Like if you have real results, like you can't make it up because it happened, right? And so if that's what you accredit your results to, then more power to you. I think that people just can embrace the fact that that's what you believe and that's what your truth is, and that it's not fluffy, right? When you share that.
Gotcha. Now, where can people find you online, or where can they find you on social media to see what's
Yeah.
going on with your business?
Yeah, so thanks for asking. Right now, I think the best place to find me is here on LinkedIn. You can follow Resolution Coaching LLC business page and also my personal page, Kneisha Sanders. And I'm also on Facebook. You can I believe it comes up at Spirit Led Leader, or you can just type in my name, Kneisha Sanders, and I will pop up.
Awesome, awesome. So, one question I like to ask before we wrap up
Mhm.
is, when you think about, kind of your journey, and you think about the things that you kind of learned in, building up your own business,
Mhm.
um, is what's two pieces of advice that you would share with other entrepreneurs to say, hey, you know what, this is something I've learned from my own journey that I think
Yeah.
will actually benefit you?
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked. because the top two things that I feel has helped me tremendously has been one, examining my results. And not in the traditional sense of execution, driving, making sure you know the numbers, but more in the sense of if you're not getting the results that you want to get or believe you should be getting, then you need to examine your thoughts. And understand what beliefs are limiting you or encouraging you to go after what it is you hope to have. And the second piece is to be a giver. I think that, sometimes as an entrepreneur or even a professional, you struggle with giving too much, right? You don't want to be taken advantage of. But I think Zig Ziglar summarized it best when he says you can have everything in life that you want if you help enough other people get what they want. And, I think that when you have a heart and a spirit of giving, you follow the rules of reciprocity, that people just want to help you out in return. And so I would say, examine your results from the sense of, are you receiving what you thought you should? And understanding what thoughts are you that you're having that's hindering that, and then also to be a giver. And I think that if you realize that you aren't getting the results that you want to have, that you should assess, how much you gave, who are you asking, and what are your motives.
Wow. I think that one is really good. So, Kneisha, thank you so much for coming on the show to tell us about, your journey, about your business. We'll definitely add some links in so people can follow you on social media and they can follow your business pages to see what you're up to and to see your continued journey and success.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, be sure to click the subscribe button and follow us on all social media platforms as the Business Talk Library.